Hello, this is Havana Wynn, and this is the Applying UX to Your Personal Life presentation. This presentation was originally for UX Hustle, the conference, and super excited to be sharing some of the ways that I kind of use UX methodologies and principles in my personal life and side projects. So first of all, who am I? For those of you who don't know, my name is Havana Wynn. I am a UX designer and I am in love with interaction design. I actually work as an UX designer for Commissions Inc. right now, which is a real estate software company. And I do a lot. Not only do I do my day job at Commissions Inc. as a UX designer, I also work on an award-winning comic series called Kamikaze. Been working on that with two other creators for about 6 years, and on top of actually creating the comics, I go out and promote it online. I go and sell and promote at conventions, and I also try to drum up business opportunities and partnerships and things like that for Kamikaze. Aside from that, I also work out a lot. I try to stick to a workout regimen, and I've been training jujitsu for 4 years. I try to do strength training, cardio. Try to keep that. I just try to keep active. I have a YouTube channel. There, I upload a lot of videos on topics that I get asked about a lot. For example, interviewing tips, surviving the first 90 days of a new job. I find that I really like helping people, and this was a great way to kind of answer some of the most frequently asked questions. I also like uploading travel videos and just having fun with video editing. Again, I'm an artist, so aside from my comic, I also like to do personal art, other side projects, and just drawing for fun and freelancing, all of that. And finally, I am a writer. Well, okay, I'm an occasional writer. I don't write all the time, but on Medium, I do have a pretty healthy following from my work on UX Planet and UX Design Collective. I wrote a couple pieces on interaction flows and reusable tables, and now I have like 3 Medium drafts in my arsenal right now that I'm working on. But my point is, I work on a lot. And the most frequently asked question I get is, how in the heck do you get all this done? How do you juggle this all? It's a trial and error. I use a lot of methodologies, and ironically, I am a tech advocate, but a lot of my tools are still analog. There's something about paper and pen and just kind of putting plans together on pen and paper that really motivates me and brings me joy. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. I'm not here to tell you, my way or the highway, just sharing some ideas that work for me. So, where does UX actually come into play here? As UXers, we are problem solvers. We like to make things more, we like to make things easier to use. We like to make things efficient. And we like to make things enjoyable to use as well. And those skills that we have as UX designers and UX professionals can be used in our personal lives to make our lives more enjoyable, our lives more efficient, our lives easier. I'm going to talk about 3 UX principles and methodologies that I use in my everyday life. I'm going to start with the most impactful thing that has helped me, and that's taking a mobile first approach to my to-do list. What the heck does that mean? First of all, what is mobile first? Mobile first design is basically designing the mobile version of an application or a site etc., before you tackle the tablet version, the desktop version. The problem with starting off with the desktop, as far as design goes, is that more than likely you're working with multiple stakeholders, and all of those stakeholders think that their thing is the most important thing. So on this interface, maybe we have, I don't know, a marketing team arguing that, hey, we gotta build our email list. We're building this for longevity, and we want a list of leads for future services and promotions in the future. So make our newsletter sign up front and center, easy to sign up, like just right there above the scroll. Well, wait a minute. Business development also thinks that their thing should be above the scroll because they're the ones bringing revenue, right? They're the ones building partnerships. So they're arguing that, hey, the banner ad should be front and center as well as the content from our partners. Because you know what? Without revenue, we ain't got a project. You need to do this. Otherwise, these companies might not work with us. Fine. And then we have maybe the community manager feels that her content should be the most important thing. After all, we're trying to build a community, right? We need to feature those users and their content and make sure that they're above the fold too. But then, you know what's the content people, they argue that, hey, hello, the site is here for a reason. It's the content. Content is king, so we need to be front and center. So you've got all these stakeholders, all this content vying for your attention. Everything is top priority. Everything needs to be shoved up there above the fold like some overstuffed bento box. And you know what? Sometimes this happens in our personal lives too. We might have a bunch of tasks, we have a bunch of people and projects and obligations that call to our attention, demand our attention. It's so easy to fall into this trap of, having multiple top priorities. I need to do task A, but I can't forget B. Oh my God, I gotta get C done. And it's easy to fall into a place where you have multiple number one priorities. And if everything is a top priority, nothing's a priority. So, mobile first. I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to brag or suck up to this lady too much, but Sophia wrote this great article on object-oriented UX. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on A List Apart, Object-Oriented UX. She talks about how mobile first, the value of mobile first is forced prioritization. So of course on that desktop example we just went over, you have multiple, all these stakeholders think that their thing is the top priority. But on a mobile device, you don't really get all that real estate. You have one column. It's a one-column design. And what it does is it forces you to show or display things in a linear order. One thing has to come after the other. So it forces you to prioritize what really needs to come first. So taking that example, content is king. That's the reason why the users are coming to this page, and we should give the users what they need exactly as soon as they get to the page, right? So it makes sense that the content is first. And then maybe we have a conversation with marketing, and it makes sense that we should offer the users a way to sign up for updates if they want to. That way we can build our list, and it does build longevity in terms of, now we have an audience to market to. The biz dev guys have a point. There is no project without the revenue. That's a big part of it too. So maybe as a compromise, let's go ahead and put that banner ad right under the newsletter sign up. just to make sure our partners or our advertisers do get some good real estate on the site. I think that's a good compromise. And then as we go down, got the community items, more biz dev stuff, and bam! What was such a mess on the desktop is now in a clear, linear, prioritized order. Now, how do we apply this to our to-do list? How do we apply this in our everyday life? Here's an example of my to-do list. This is an actual to-do list. And basically, what we're going to do, we're going to try to force prioritization on here by forcing it into a linear order. We're going to just number these tasks. Right now, these tasks are listed in no particular order. I just list them all down. And I do that just to go ahead and vomit out like all the things I need to get out of my head. So we're going to go through this list and try to figure out what's number 1, what's number 2, what's number 3. And as you're coming up with that order, you want to consider 4 factors. 1, deadline. Is there anything that has a specific recipient or a deadline? Is there a time frame you need to deliver this by? After deadline, you want to consider the impact. How does this impact your overall goals for the year, for the month, your goals of what you want to accomplish for yourself. And then, of course, difficulty and time, you want to consider the effort, the amount of time it takes. That's going to factor into this as well. So let's look at our to-do list. What's going to be number 1? Is there something that has a definite deadline? Well, I see right away, illustrations for UX Hustle deck. There's a clear recipient. There's a clear date. UX Hustle is a conference. I need to deliver that by then. So easily, that should be my top priority. That should be the first thing I work on from this to-do list. Now, second, what would be the second thing I want to do? Fold up laundry, answer the email. Well, there's Dante's project. That is a freelance project I'm working on. And even though Dante has not given me a specific deadline, it is a very specific recipient, and I did promise him I would get him initial wireframes. So I think that's going to be number 2. Now, for number 3, illustrations and the freelance project, those are 2 pretty intensive tasks. So I don't want to get burned out today, especially early on. So why don't we, for number 3, we tackle something a little easier. Let's see. Take items to Goodwill. I'm going to have to get them to my car and, go out. Email. I don't know. Why don't we fold up the laundry next? That's pretty mindless. I'll get it done. Bam, easy. And then why don't we answer Jamie's email while we're at it? Something also doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of effort, but I can cross that out and keep this momentum going. So once you start doing that and forcing everything into a linear order, you get a to-do list with numbers attached to each item. So here I would work on illustrations for the UX Hustle deck first, then Dante's project, then laundry, then answer Jamie's email, and then I will do this outline for video script, and so on and so forth. So what does this exercise help us do? 2 things. Number 1, it gives you mental clarity into what's really important. Now you have a mental hierarchy of the tasks in your head. You're no longer scatterbrained about, oh my God, what I need to focus on right now, what's important, what should I, put more weight on. It's all there for you. There's no more confusion or scatterbrained about that. Number 2, there's a lot of cognitive load that happens in between tasks. So when you finish a task, you get stuck into this dance where you're asking yourself, okay, I just finished X. Now, what's the next thing I should work on? What do I have time for? What am I in the mood to do? What is more important? What should I focus on next? And even though, realistically, it only takes maybe 10 to 30 seconds to figure it out, it does add up. That cognitive load does add up over time, and it is mental strain. So what I like about this forced prioritization is that it takes the thinking out completely. As soon as I'm done with my freelance project, I know to fold up the laundry. After that, I just answer email. I'm just following these numbers. I don't have to think in between each task. I know it sounds really simple, but I've been doing this for a year, and it's really helped me get so many things done. It's helped me juggle like my YouTube channel and my writing and my UX work, my comic work. I mean, it really does help me prioritize and just be more productive and efficient with my time. The next thing I want to talk about is how to keep a personal backlog. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of modern product companies now, or product teams now, probably follow some form of agile. So a sprint is basically a block of time dedicated for some specific task. So in a lot of product teams, the devs might follow like a 2-week sprint, and in those 2 weeks, you're going to work on A, B, and C. A, B, and C should be done by the end of that sprint. For me, I actually like I like to cherry pick from Agile, and I actually follow month-long sprints for my personal life. And that backlog is basically a dumping ground for all the features, all the things that has to be done, but doesn't really have a deadline or a time frame on it yet. As I said, I like to use analog tools to plan out my months, my weeks, and before each month, I actually like to set up my to-do, like what do I want to get done by the end of that month. And the problem is that I come up with a lot of ideas. Between my comic and articles and all that stuff, I have a lot of ideas just bursting out of my head. And before, there would be so many ideas I would write down or collect, and nothing would ever move forward on that idea. And it was really discouraging, or it's like, man, I really want to explore that. So I started keeping a personal backlog. Basically, this is a dumping ground for all of the things that I come up with, or things I want to do, things I want to pursue. And here I have multiple categories, but for this example, I have my website, social, and learning and self-improvement. Those are the 3 backlog categories depicted here. And so, like, for example, website backlog items would be all the things I want to add to the website or modify on the website, things that I know I need to get done, but I don't quite have a deadline for it yet. So what I do is I take, before each month, I have a month spread. And again, you don't have to use this exact format. You can do whatever works for you. It could be a calendar, it could be an app, it could be just a planner. I go back to my backlog, I pick a few things I want to work on, and I make those my goals. I try to stick to maybe 2 or 3 items. If I have leftover time, I can go back to my backlog and check it out. Pull more things from the backlog and work on them that month. But basically, by doing that, by approaching each month as a sprint and pulling from a backlog of ideas that I already know I want to work on, I make sure that those ideas move forward. So now I run into the problem of you know, dead ideas a lot less. And sometimes months go by and you realize like there are certain items in your backlog that don't ever see the light of day, or you just are not interested in tackling them at all. Sometimes you do end up just crossing things out of the backlog. On product teams, sometimes we just throw away feature ideas that maybe don't really have a reason, like maybe users don't really want it, or maybe it just makes no business sense to do it. It's okay. Actually, as important it is to have a to-do list, it's equally important to have a to-not-do list. And then another thing I cherry picked from Agile, you'll see here that we have an awesome and not awesome section. I like to do postmortems. So at the end of each month, I like to reflect and think about what went really well and what didn't go so well. Where can I improve? What can I avoid next month? Where can I be more efficient or find more enjoyment, or make things easier for myself? That's what that section is for. And finally, I'm going to go into tech debt sprints. Sometimes on some product teams, devs will actually go through sprints where they don't do anything but tackle tech debt, meaning they don't work on any new features or anything like that. They just clean up code for that sprint. For me, I call these my task debt sprints. So we all have them. We all have tasks that we have to get done, but they're not creative, they're not fun, they're not like, it's just like things you procrastinate on. But they're, to keep things moving, you gotta get them done. It causes me so much mental distress to have like too many of these nagging tasks nagging me at the back of my mind, building up. And it's just like causing me anxiety, and I'm just like, ugh, there's this thing hanging over my head. So this is where a task debt sprint would help. Now I use month-long sprints for my personal life, but for the task debts, I just devote a week to it. So I think a month is overkill, but for a week, all I'll focus on is closing up these loose ends, right? These things that have been nagging at the back of my head. It could be like, oh, I gotta make that dental appointment, or I gotta go ahead and take care of this document, or send this through the mail. Just little things that, aren't super urgent, but I just need to tie up those loose ends. And what happens at the end of a task debt sprint is I just feel like a burden has been lifted off, and it's just so great to just feel like, oh my god, that nagging thing is not going to nag me anymore. This is awesome. And a lot of times it kind of builds momentum in your productivity flow. It actually inspires you to do even more and get more things done. And as I want to leave you guys with this: life is iterative. I go through a lot of trial and error to figure out what I want to do, what projects I want to take on, where I want to drive my creative efforts. And it's okay for some things to fail. In fact, you should be failing at some things. You should be trying things that, if you're not failing, you're not trying enough new endeavors or new things. It's okay to have trial and error in this. And if you don't take anything else from this, please at least try the forced prioritization thing and just start forcing your to-do list in a linear order. It's amazing. It's really helped me, and I actually use it for work and personal. It's basically everywhere. Thank you so much for listening to my little presentation. I hope it has been helpful. This is Havana Wynn. You can go to my website at havanawynn.com, check out some of my work, and you can hit me up on Twitter at Havana Tweets. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can either contact me through my contact page on havanawynn.com, or send me a DM. Thanks, and hope you learned a couple things today.